Into 14 BC, the Roman Republic laid siege to the Greek city of Syracuse. The Romans were led by the general Marcus Claudius Marcellus. But little did he know he was about to meet his match in the form of a defense engineer named Archimedes. Syracuse was a wealthy city on the island of Sicily and had been an independent power until 75 BC when it came under the control of Hiero II of the Greek kingdom of Syracuse. Soon after, Rome took an interest in expanding into Sicily, and Hiero decided to ally himself with the Carthaginians to protect against them. However, into 64 BC, war broke out between Rome and Carthage, kicking off the First Punic War. For a few years, Syracuse remained neutral, but they soon began supplying the Carthaginians with much-needed resources. Into 18 BC, Hannibal crossed the Alps and invaded Italy. And so Syracuse now found itself at war with Rome. Rome sent a massive fleet and army to lay siege to the city, but they would soon find themselves engaged in the longest siege in ancient history. One of Archimedes' most famous inventions was the catapult. Catapults were basically giant slingshots used to hurl projectiles over long distances. They consisted of a long arm that was pulled back and then released, launching whatever was attached to the end of it. Catapults could launch rocks, arrows, spears, and even small boats. Archimedes designed several different types of catapults for use in the siege. Some were built on towers or on the city walls to defend against the Romans who tried to get too close. Others were placed on ships to attack the Roman naval force. The basic design of a catapult hadn't really changed since it was invented by the Greeks around 399 BC. So Archimedes' major innovation was in how he deployed them, not necessarily in how he constructed them. He also developed some rather unusual applications for them, like using them to hurl burning pitch and resin onto the ships of the Roman fleet. Another one of Archimedes' inventions that proved useful during the siege was something he called the giant claw. This was a crane-like mechanism mounted on a ship that would allow him to lift a ship out of the water and flip it over. It is often depicted in art as having a large claw at the end of it that could grab hold of a vessel and tip it over, hence the name Giant Claw. But there's no actual evidence that this is what it looked like. The only description we have of it comes from the Roman writer Pliny the Elder, who said it looked more like a giant crab claw than anything else. Regardless of what it actually looked like, the device was effective at least one thing: lifting and flipping ships. If one of Archimedes' catapults managed to hook a Roman ship with its claw, it would be lifted out of the water and flipped over. This would either cause the ship to sink or make it easy prey for the other catapults to finish off. Of course, the claw itself was vulnerable and could be destroyed if hit by the catapults of the Romans. But Archimedes had a solution for that, too. He placed two catapults on the shore facing the sea, one on each side of the claw ship. If the Romans were able to destroy the claw, the two catapults would quickly bring it back up onto the surface, allowing the crew to repair the damage. This device wasn't the first of its kind. A similar ship had been used by the Carthaginians in the First Punic War, which ended up sinking the Roman general Hamilcar Barca. However, it is possible that Archimedes made improvements to it and incorporated other technologies to make it even more effective. While the claw was great at taking care of enemy ships, Archimedes also needed a way to deal with the Roman army that was laying siege to the city. One of his most impressive achievements was building a series of curved mirrors that would focus the sunlight onto the ships of the Roman fleet. This would ignite the ships and cause them to burn, killing anyone who was still on board. Of course, this wasn't all that difficult to do. All he needed were some polished metal shields and some bronze mirrors. He positioned the mirrors at just the right angle to reflect the sunlight onto the ships and then hid behind the walls, making sure he didn't get burned up along with his enemies. It's reported that Archimedes used these mirrors to burn over 60 Roman ships, although we don't know how accurate this figure is. But the Romans couldn't keep their distance forever. Eventually, they got close enough to the city that the mirrors couldn't reach them. And so Archimedes had to come up with another solution. He constructed towers that were around 70 feet high and were topped with a ball made of bronze or stone that weighed around 5 tons. These were then attached to ropes and pulleys, which allowed them to be raised and lowered. When the Romans got too close to the city, Archimedes would order the balls dropped. The sheer size and weight of them made it so that they were deadly weapons. No amount of shields or armor could stop them, and they could easily crush a person to death or knock them unconscious. The people of Syracuse called these devices terror machines because of how effective they were at repelling the Romans. Again, though, Archimedes didn't invent these things. Towers that dropped heavy objects had been used since ancient Mesopotamia. What made them effective was how quickly they could respond. Unlike the Romans, who had to spend time hauling the boulders up to the top of the tower and then rolling them down, Archimedes had used pulleys and ropes to drop them with a minimal amount of effort. These towers proved very effective against the Romans. Even though they were unable to destroy them from a distance, they were killed in large numbers every time the bronze balls were dropped. Archimedes used all of these inventions and strategies to repel the Roman forces for over 3 years. During that time, he built towers, catapults, and claws, set fire to ships with mirrors, and dropped massive bronze balls from great heights, killing hundreds of Roman soldiers. But eventually the people of Syracuse gave up hope of victory and instead negotiated a peace treaty with Rome. The city was allowed to keep its wealth and independence, and Archimedes and his inventions played a huge role in that. Syracuse may have won the battle, but ultimately Rome would win the war. Carthage was completely destroyed and made into a Roman province. And Syracuse would eventually become part of the Roman Empire as well. But that wouldn't happen for another 100 years. During that time, Archimedes continued his work as a mathematician and scientist. He's best known today for his discoveries related to pi and his development of the compound pulley. He died in 12 BC during the siege of Syracuse. According to legend, he was so absorbed in his work that he didn't notice a Roman soldier sneaking up on him. When he finally looked up, he was killed by a Roman soldier who supposedly didn't want to disturb his concentration. Whether this story is true or not, we may never know. But it's a fitting end for such an ingenious man. After hearing this, let me know in the comments below what your favorite invention of Archimedes was. Did you enjoy this video? Then you'll definitely love the series in the description below. Make sure to subscribe and check out more awesome content. Thanks for watching.